Blimey lads, Railway Empire 2 is a right proper quarter. Like a perfectly poured Guinness, the execution is spot on from its brilliant UI, its top-notch building mechanics and pretty graphics. It's a package that will make you whistle with delight. This one snuck under the radar, but trust me me old muckers, you owe it to yourself to give it a try. So let Reggie and the boys try break it down in today's review. So grab yourself a cuppa, sit tight and let's have a chat. Now listen here boys and girls, because when Reggie hopped aboard Railway Empire 2, he didn't have a Scooby-Doo what to expect. He never played the original, but let me tell ya, the experience I've had here is top notch, like riding in first class. In the game you step into the shoes of a railway company founder. You get to pick your character, choose a map from around the world, and then it's all about building and managing the railway lines to help the cities grow. This is done by meeting supply and demand with rail passengers, mail and freight. You'll be buying stock, sticking it to the competition via sabotage and building a off massive railway empire. That's the Reggie overview, but trust me, it's far more intricate than that. It's like untangling a web of tube lines during rush hour without all the commuter twats getting in your way. Complex, yes, but it's totally manageable. Immediately, Reggie and the boys noticed how the developers hit the nail on the head with Railway Empire 2's track building mechanics. No more messing about with complicated layouts and confusing switches. This made it easy as pie. Building switches, just plonk down 2 parallel tracks and select the direction and Bob's your uncle, switches are sorted. Need a parallel track that follows the original direction of the track next to it? No sweat me old China. Press a button and the game does the rest. It's like having your own personal rail engineer taking care of the nitty gritty. And let's talk about those complex stations with multiple tracks. It can be a proper nightmare figuring out which train goes where, but Railway Empire 2 has got your back. Just slap down a rail grid and the game magically works out which train can go to which platform based on its availability. It's like having the fat controller at your fingertips as it keeps everything running like clockwork. And the best part, building tracks, adjusting their height, dodging obstacles and making tweaks is an absolute doddle. The terrain bends and moulds itself naturally, giving your railway line that authentic and polished look. But the goodness doesn't stop there, my pedigree chums. Railway Empire 2 takes care of the nitty-gritty details for you too. Adding lines, deciding whether a train carries freight or acts as an express service. It's all done with a simple click. No need to fuss about with carriages and cargo selection. It's all automated, so you can just focus on the real deal, planning routes and meeting the needs of them cities and towns. And let me tell you, the game UI is a right treat. Simple icons, intuitive menus, and quick access to all the tools you need are just there. It's like they've taken a page out of Johnny Two Shoes' guide on how to handle a cosh. All in all then, Railway Empire 2's track building and management mechanics are a stroke of genius. They've made the complex feel simple, and the result is a game that propels what could be a complicated shit show into a breeze. And don't you worry, my dear Padawans, Railway Empire 2 ain't no dumbed down version of a rail sim. It still requires careful track layout, especially when you got 2 cities bumping into a rural station that need both goods and passengers. That's where warehouses and hotels come in, giving them a cosy little spot to rest before continuing their journey. And be careful too, the fastest tracks can drain your pockets faster than a bloke down in pints at the pub. Building tunnels and bridges might seem like a quick route, but it's also the express ticket to bankruptcy. Now the challenge just ain't about track management. You've got to keep your trains running smoothly with maintenance and towers, and invest in staff to keep the whole thing ticking like clockwork. Juggling all these tasks whilst meeting the needs of the city can feel like trying to balance a teacup on a bloke's nose. Picture this, one rural town has cattle, but a city wants some juicy meat. Connect them up and you've got yourself a simple connection, but soon enough the tracks get clogged as freight trains slow down the passenger trains and the mail trains. You got to constantly refine your routes using those top-notch tools at your disposal. But if you keep them goods moving, you start seeing cities upgrade themselves with skyscrapers rising like Ron Jeremy reading a Playboy mag. And to support this growth, there's a vast research tree that takes you through the decades. Starting with a puny little locomotive that will still make you prefer horses, you eventually unlock beasts like the Santa Fe, the Texas and the Flying Scotsman. Along the way you unlock buildings and tech like them fancy hotels and warehouses that I mentioned, giving you a slight edge in rate raking in the cash. Now let's talk about competition too. Hostile takeovers are on the table, and those buggers can send in a saboteur to give you a right bollocking. They might cause damage to a station, leaving it unable to load goods for weeks on end. It's enough to make you pull your hair out, especially if you're dealing with a train hub, but fear not, because security measures can save your ass from such calamities. I've had a go at the sandbox mode myself, which is far more open as to offering you the freedom to go anywhere, but there's also a challenging campaign with full voice acting and plenty of objectives to sink your teeth into. Reggie has got a bone to pick with a few areas of Railway Empire 2 though. Now let's talk about the pacing of the game. This feels slower than a donkey on a Sunday stroll, even with the supposed speed increase to 3x. Reggie had more time in his hand than a sloth in a hammock, waiting for those little milestones to hit. So much so that I had me boiling a kettle and sip 2 cups of teas before the game gave me a nod to continue on to the next bloody milestone. Now Reggie loves the simple building mechanics, but there is one thing that's got me more confused than a Nebraska Miss USA. Cargo movement I'm still trying to work out. I build warehouses, I select the cargo, but try as I might, I can't seem to shift that cargo from one stop to another. Perhaps it's my noggin that's gone bonkers, but a little more explanation from the game would be grand. And don't get me started on trying to make trains have multiple stops. I've got tracks and switches set up, but the game's playing hard to get. Maybe there's some game mechanic I'm missing here, but a clearer explanation would do wonders, especially for us blokes who know how to rob trains but not run them. Owen Reggie stumbled upon a cheeky bug in the tutorial that made it impossible to complete. The game turned a blind eye to the goods I was transporting, but fear not, I'm sure a patch could sort this right out. But let's be honest, these little hiccups can put a dampener on the momentum. Let's talk about the graphics, shall we? Now, Railway Empire 2 knows how to put on a show. Reggie hasn't gone and created a chaotic mess of tracks like a plate of spaghetti, but from what I've seen, this game runs smoother than a greased up hill. It's well optimised with the trusty 4080 graphics card humming along nicely at full settings at 4K. Take that, Transit Fever 2. That game had more issues than a pub with a leaky roof. Railway Empire 2, on the other hand, is as smooth as silk. Now let's give a nod to the art design too. The game paints a lovely picture of the vast plains of Europe and America in the 1800s. Wildlife roams around and towns bustle with people and carts. The attention to detail in the building models is top notch and everything looks and feels sharp. But here's the funny bit. The art style, especially in the towns, is so clean and sharp that it almost feels a bit clinical. Now don't get me wrong, it doesn't take away from the overall feel, but I can't help but think back to the early days of these towns with their pollution and disease. A touch of grit and some grime wouldn't have hurt, my darlings. But let's talk about the true stars of the show, the trains. They are a sight to behold, beautifully modelled with volumetric clouds of smoke billowing out, and even the drivers have their own little details. It's a proper joy to follow a train on its journey and watch the world go by. But here's the thing, over time it can get a tad monotonous. Reggie would have loved to have seen some weather thrown into the mix. Imagine wet tracks, gusty winds or scorching temperatures. It would have added some much needed texture and challenge to the game, but you can't have it all, can ya? Now when it comes to sound in particular, the music in Railway Empire 2 is top notch. The twangs of the guitar take you straight through to a Wild West saloon, while the beats echo the rhythm of the trains. It's proper immersive, and let me tell you, so many games get it wrong when it comes to the music selection, but not this one. It's absolutely spot on. But it's not just the music that impresses. The sound effects in this game are a real delight. Picture this, cargo clattering about as it's unloaded from the trains, the whistle of a train as it approaches a station, and the hustle and bustle of the cities coming to life. It all sounds fantastic in the right context, of course. It might not make you go wow in amazement, but when you combine it with the music, everything here just clicks into place. There's enough variety in the sound selection to give you that warm, fuzzy feeling in your belly every time you boot up the game. Well then, Railway Empire 2 turned out to be a hidden gem of a game that wasn't on Reggie's radar. As a lover of strategy games, Reggie was pleasantly surprised to discover a game with deeper and more complex systems than he expected, and let me tell you, it could have easily turned into a right pig's ear, but the developers did a bang up job with the fantastic UI and the phenomenal building mechanics. It's a challenge, no doubt about it, but the rewards are sweeter than a spoonful of coke. And let's not forget about how the game runs and sounds. Smooth as a freshly polished rail track, and the sound is great to boot. Now I know there have been a few rail games floating about lately, but let me tell you this, Railway Empire 2 is the cream of the crop. It's it's the one to go for without a doubt. I'll even go as far to say that with a bit more refinement, a bit more tuning, this game could give Transport Tycoon a run for its money as the ultimate king. That's some high praise right there. And there you have it, my lovelies. If you enjoyed the video, give Reggie a like and show him some love. And until next time, take care of yourself and lots of love to you all. Reggie out.